iniciar a gravação. And we will switch to English. Perfect. So, it's a pleasure to have Felipe Crasto here with us today. Felipe got his bachelor in 2014, his master's in 2016, and his PhD in 2020, all of them here at UFO, working with Hiroki. During 2018, during his PhD, he was a visiting scholar at the University of Delaware in the United States. He did his postdoc in 2020, 2021 at CNPEN in Campinas, Brazil. And currently he's at CNPEN at the Ilum School of Science. Yes. Since 2021. 21. Right? 21. And today he's going to talk to us about can defects drive a topological phase in 2D materials? So, Felipe, thank you very much for accepting our invitation. The microphone is yours.
Thank you, Jorge. Thank you again for the invitation. It's a pleasure to talk to my colleagues there in Uberlândia. And I will talk about this. It's not all 2D materials, but a class of 2D materials and how the effects can induce topological phases. So just an overview for those who didn't hear about topological systems. So we have a material which has an energy gap, but at the interface of another material or maybe the vacuum, there is a metallic surface state that is protected by some symmetry of the system. So everyone shows this kind of picture of the sphere and the donut, but here I would like just to be more clear about this analogy. So when you talk about topology in mathematics, you are trying to classify systems that can be deformed one in another without losing some chosen property. In the case of the sphere and the donuts, usually we are talking about the surface of the system being continuous and also closed. So we want to classify all the system that has a continuous and closed surface in classes. And if you can modify the surface from one object to the other without breaking this property, we say that they have the same topology. But if you cannot do this, for instance, if you take the sphere and try to convert it in a donut, eventually you have to puncture a hole. So you are breaking the property that you are starting with, that is the surface not more closed nor continuous. So these two systems are not topological equivalent. In the materials is the same analogy. I'm trying to connect the form the parameters of a given Hamiltonian, but I want to keep the property fixed, that is the gap, the energy gap. So if I can deform a system to another without losing this property, that is the existence of an energy gap, then these two systems can be said to be in the same topological class. But if I cannot do this, then they are in different topological class. And when we look to these interface materials of different topology, there is this some exotic metallic states in the interface that can have some advantages to application in nanoelectronics. For instance, if these topological materials are robust against has the symmetry, time reversal symmetry, those interface states have a spin texture that forbids the backscattering. So the electrons with spin up channel goes to one side in one interface, and the spin down goes to the other side. If there is nothing magnetic in the system breaking the time reversal, then this transition is forbidden, so there is no backscattering. So usually when we say this, we are thinking about low power spintronics, but if I send an electron in the system, he cannot go back. I don't have scattering, so I can think about a transport in a low power system. And recently this is just a picture, a schematic picture, but there's a devices are already being sold, but for research, not commercially, where they developed a magnetic random access memory. So we have, and this magnetic random access memory has a topological insulator as the material that drives the magnetic change in the bit. So when you pass a current in the topological insulator and it goes closer to this magnetic system, then the time reversal is not preserved anymore. I can have backscattering, but if I have a backscattering, the spin up and spin down, the spin up goes to spin down. So for the angular momentum conservation, this closed magnet has to receive this other angular momentum, so you can switch the magnetization of the system, driving a current to the topological insulator. So there's some applications such as systems, but then if you look to find materials to be at this device, we need to look to materials that are robust against structural modifications, against chemical modifications, or it cannot be, this topological insulator phase cannot be, it needs to be robust against oxidation. And usually if it's robust against the high density of defects, then it is good, because you don't have to be so careful with your synthesis. And so we are looking to find new systems that are robust against such modifications. This is a 2019 paper of Nicola Marzari, and he tries to find new possible two-dimensional topological insulators that looking through 3D systems. So he's looking through a data set of three-dimensional systems and try to find the ones that can be exfoliated and classify which ones are topological insulator, which ones are not. So I put here just a small set of examples, and I have ordered here from the higher topological gap to the lowest. And if you look to the higher, so we have here a 0.5 electron EV topological gap. So this is something that we can measure experimentally, 0.5 EV. But bismuth, two-dimensional bismuth is oxidized very rapidly. So we have a recent paper that we show that interface may actually stabilize such a system, but even so, the oxidation occurs very rapidly, and we cannot have applications to bismuth in the system. And also these other two materials, the zirconium tellurium and hafnium tellurium, you have to be very careful when you are synthesizing such a system. But then appears at third place here, a material derived of platinum, mercury, and selenium. And I will talk about more about this material later. But this material is a mineral occurring naturally, so we can think that maybe it is stable against such chemical modifications. But then let's see, we want to find new materials that are experimentally achievable, and we can actually manipulate to create devices. So besides graphene, that is the most explored two-dimensional material, the class of transition metal chalcogenide are the second place, the most explored. So we have a transition metal and two chalcogenides forming a lattice, and the system is well established experimentally. They are chemically stable. There's an industry behind the application of those systems, so we can actually exfoliate very easily. You can buy these materials online, so it's very useful to think of devices working this material, because you can actually build it. So, but these materials have two different phases. So I'm showing here the hexagonal phase, which you have the transition metal is this purple one, and the chalcogenide are the yellow one. So you have one chalcogenide on top of each other in this structure. And we have the trigonal phase, the transition metal is the gray one, and the chalcogenide is the yellow. in this phase, there's not a chalcogen on top of each other in this on top figure. And we actually take a class of different transition metal systems, so molybdenum, tungsten, nickel, palladium, platinum, and combine it with sulfur, selenium, tellurium, and you can actually build these materials. And at the left here, I'm just comparing the energy, total energy of the systems of the phase 1H and 1T. And for the positive cohesive energy here, the relative cohesive energy, it says that the nickel is the purple curve, platinum and palladium are more stable in this trigonal phase, and the molybdenum and tungsten are more stable in this hexagonal phase. So we need to take care of the structure, but then, well, in all those systems, they are in the monolayer pristine, they are trivial semiconductors. So they have an energy gap here when they are pristine monolayers, and they have this, they are trivial semiconductors. But how can I take the systems to a topological phase? Experimentally, the systems do not come pristine, so they have a lot of defects, and actually these defects can be controlled experimentally by heating or by sending an ion beam, so we can actually control the formation of defects. And when we have defects in such a system, the defects introduce energy states in the middle of the energy gap of the pristine material. So maybe if we can somehow manipulate this defect states, we can drive the system to a topological phase. So in those transition metal chalcogenide, the most stable defect is the formation of a chalcogen vacancy. So we explored the formation of chalcogen of a transition metal vacancy. So we have energies in the range of 8 to 14 electron volts, but the chalcogen is below 6, so it's the most stable defect in those systems. And we actually explored the varying the defect concentration. So here's just an example. So we have a backbone of platinum diselenide, and we have formed an array of ordered vacancies. And we are changing the distance between these vacancies. So that's what is shown here. So when we take the vacancies closer to each other, we have a higher density vacance, which is the left band structure. And if you go to a higher distance between the vacancies, we have the right curve here, with lower vacancy density. And if you look to the right in the 5x5 band structure, the black and green curves are the defect states. So they are defect states. I have colored one of these bands green just to be clear. So when we have this system which defects are almost isolated from each other, so we have very flat energy levels. But when we increase the vacancy density, the defect starts to interact with each other, and we gain a certain of dispersion in the energy bands. And when we go towards this higher density vacancy, we have an abundant inversion of these two defect bands. So when we are in this range of vacancy density, we have above the Fermi level, we have a possible gap that is topological. So we actually summarize this band structure in the graph here above. And if you have a lower vacancy density, the system is trivial. There is zero vacancy, the system is a trivial semiconductor. When you start to increase the vacancy densities, this is still a trivial insulator because the vacancies do not interact with each other. But when there is an interaction, the system goes to a topological phase. But then if you keep increasing the vacancy density, then it's not a platinum diselenide vacancy, it's another material, it's just platinum selenium, and we lose this information. So how can we understand this topological phase transition here? So just to clarify also, we did this for a lot of materials. So it's just an example of the platinum diselenide. So when we do the vacancy lights, the vacancy system, it appears these three vacancy states. And above the Fermi level, there's these edge states in the system, if I make the system finite, and these edge states has a spin polarization characteristic of quantum spin Hall systems. And the same is valid for the molybdenum disulfide, but here the energy gap is very small, but the same argument is valid. So there is a certain vacancy concentration where the system goes to a topological phase. But again, the Fermi energy it's here, so the system is actually trivial. We need to dope the system with 2 electrons per vacancy to achieve this topological phase, and that's something that we are currently exploring. So it is possible to do this. Well, the next chapters will show to us. But just to talk about what is happening in the system. So when I induce a vacancy here, there is 3 dangling bonds in the neighboring platinum, and these dangling bonds, we can actually do a simple model with 1 orbital per site, and we can see that we have this kind of structure of level. So we have a single level and a double degenerated level, but the spin orbit split these double degenerated levels. So you have if you have a counting of the electrons, this first state here has 2 electrons, so it's fully occupied. These other 2 states are empty. And then if you take this defect, so these 3 sites that's formed by a vacancy, and start put vacancies close to each other, so induce an interaction of each other, we can actually construct a toy model here, and we can see that depending on the closeness of the vacancies, that is the second neighbor here interaction, we can have a topological phase transition. So we actually construct a map here for when the topological phase will appear. Will depend on the localization of the defect states. So the alpha here actually map the second neighbor hopping. So if the defect is very localized states, the second neighbor hopping will go to 0, so we go to a trivial phase. But if this vacant states has a higher length, then the second neighbor hopping will be relevant, and the system can go to a non-trivial phase. So we actually map the system, and this is just a band structure showing that for lower concentration, the system is trivial, but higher concentration, there's a topological phase. And here is just trying to sell the idea to the experimentalists. So actually we can induce an ion beam on the systems and choose a region to draw vacancy channels. So we actually can take a pristine material and induce a channel here with vacancy. And if you look to the interface, so this is a zoom, and this is not a model anymore. This is a density functional theory calculation. And we have at the interface, we have this topological phase. So maybe we can actually use such a highly explored material experimentally to construct topological channels. But then if you look to the first paper that I show experimentally, these vacancies appear at random, not very orderly as I show, but we have done just a few cases just to show the concept. And even with somewhat random distribution of vacancy, we can still stabilize a non-trivial topological phase. So the argument is still valid. As long as the vacancies are interact with each other, maybe we can find this topological phase in such a system. But again, if we think that we have this transition metal backbone and we start to form vacancies, maybe there are foreign atoms that can go in and fill these vacancy states, and we can actually build a different material. So here I'm showing in the left is the platinum diselenide system, and in the right I have replaced it 1/4 of the selenium by I give another metal, and actually this kind of material has been found occurring naturally in Minas Gerais, in the city of Itabira, and they namely these materials Jacutingaíta. So they are actually there's this name, Jacutingaita, is a hematite vein that they used to look for gold, but eventually they found another kind of gold, at least for us, a topological material. So this material was found at 2008, was firstly synthesized artificially in 2012, and then on 2018, the group of Nicolas Marzari have characterized such a system as a topological insulator. So if in this structure here, if you look to the green circles, pinpoint the mercury atoms, and they form actually a hexagonal cell. And if you look to the band structure, first without spin orbital coupling, we see exactly a Dirac cone like in graphene, and the spin orbit in such a system is relevant. So there is a gap opening exactly like the Kenny-Meili model. So this is the first Kenny-Meili model material. And then, well, if you have this is a topological insulator, in the interface there you have a metallic state that have some kind of texture. And in 2020, there's the single experimental result in the monolayer of Jacutingaite, and they done some STM measurement, and this green line, they are cutting the system and showing here. So the x-axis in the right figure is the green line in the left one. So they show that there is an energy gap in the system away far from the edge, but when you go to the edge, there is a metallic state. So it's not very clear from here that this is in fact a topological metallic state, but they are at least showing that there is a metallic state at the interface. But then, so this is 2018, the paper of Marzari, and this was the start of my postdoc, and we actually think with ourselves. So if the system is based on there is a transition method chalcogenide backbone, and there's a lot of transition method chalcogenide system, maybe we can just propose new Jacutingaite-like materials based on this transition method chalcogenide. So we actually done that. So we generate all the materials in such a class. So replacing platinum by nickel and palladium, and the mercury by cadmium and zinc, and exploring the chalcogenide systems to construct other materials. When we submit such a paper, they found occurring naturally in Germany the palladium version of the Jacutingaite. So it makes us happy that we are not looking to some materials that could not be real. So all these materials have exactly the same band structure. So we have a Dirac cone close to the Fermi energy, and the spin orbital coupling can open this gap. However, there's some difference in the M point. There can be a downward bending here. So not all the systems are insulators or semiconductors. Most are semi-metals. So if you think the heavier transition metal like platinum, they have a semiconductor phase, but the lightweight metals, they are semi-metals. But at least they will be topological. I will show in the next slide. But they will coexist with some bulk metallic phase. Then there's not more a backscattering protection, because we can actually scatter to bulk topological state. But for some systems, the system is topological insulated. So here is a summary of the topological classification of those materials. For the nickel system, we have actually the zinc and cadmium. Most of the materials are trivial, but for the mercury ones, all the materials are non-trivial. So all of these have a topological phase. So this transition for trivial to non-trivial is given to this downward bending at the endpoint. So the system has an inversion at the endpoint, but depending on the transition metal combination of nickel, zinc, nickel, cadmium, nickel, and mercury, there has an extra inversion here at the endpoint, so the system goes to a trivial state. And but what is more interesting is that the Jacutingaite was found is this guy here, is the green point, platinum 2, mercury, selenide, and they have an energy gap of almost 0.1 eV, but there are some other materials, the zinc analogs of Jacutingaite, that has a higher energy gap. So there are some experimental efforts here in CNP try to synthesize such a material which has a higher topological gap. But then working with the experiments, we see that it's not so easy to synthesize such a system, and we need actually to look, so what happens if this mercury concentration vary, or if we introduce disorder in such a system, it is still a topological insulator. So we start exploring first the mercury concentration. So we have here the formation energy of such a system, and we see that for a concentration of mercury above 50%, the system actually has a positive formation energy, that is, the system will not be stable. But lower from this, the system can be stable. The Jacutingaite is the 25% mercury, so it's exactly this structure here. And we have the band structure of the system. So if you have no mercury, the system is a trivial insulator. But if you add 25% of mercury, the system presents the Dirac cone and the spin orbit open a gap, and we have a topological insulator. For 50% mercury, we have the same scenario. So there's actually a Dirac cone in the system, the spin orbit open a gap, and actually we have characterized this calculating the Z2 invariant, and we show that this is indeed a topological insulator phase. In the 75%, you also have a topological phase, and 100% mercury, the system is not an insulator anymore, although it has a metallic topological phase, but it's not an insulator anymore. But what we want to answer here is that varying the mercury concentration, the system retains the topological phase. And this is just to corroborate our argumentation. We did a finite system and calculate the edge state. So we have a Dirac cone at a time reverse invariant moment, and this Dirac cone has a spin texture, and the system is indeed a topological system for different concentrations of mercury. But here we actually done just ordered structure, and we can actually think now about introducing disorder in the system. So here we work in a periodic cell methodology. So how can we create a disorder system in the periodic cell geometry? So there is this special quasi-random structure method that we can take a larger supercell and random place the mercury atoms and calculate if the correlation pair it's equal to a true random system. So if this is true, we take this structure as a good sample to study random systems. But this approach is limited computationally to concentrations close to 50%. Because if you want to go lower, you need a larger supercell to have more atoms to take place and do a statistic. So we actually limited to a concentration range around 50%. But even so, we have generated this the random structure, and we have calculated the Z2 invariant in all those systems. So here, we have kind of a summary here for all those mercury concentration. We have the x-axis just a label for the states, because the system, although it has periodicity, we are using only one K point to simulate the system. So the supercell is very large, so the Brillouin zone is very small, so one point is enough. But we can calculate the Z2 invariant for different energy gap in the system, for different energies. And we see all those shaded regions are topological gaps. So even the random structure varying the mercury concentration, we find at some point close to the Fermi level a topological gap. But then we could not go lower to 0.25%, even in the random case, because we have a computational limit to do the simulation. But we can have an argument here that is the following. If you look to the spin char number of the system, we actually want to do this integral. And this is the Berry connection, which has this derivative in k momentum. So this is actually I vis the derivative in k momentum is like actually the position operator. And if these states are well localized, they are agent standard of the position operator, and then the char number goes to 0. So if you have, this is kind of obvious, if you have very localized states, they are in the atomic limit and the system is trivial, right? So eventually, if I go to two atoms that are interaction and I take they further apart, the system needs to go to a trivial phase. And so this is an analysis that we did. So how can I say that a random distribution of Mercuries has an interaction between neighbor Mercuries, and I can actually increase this concentration until eventually we have a percolation path towards the sample. If this is true, then I can, in principle, have a topological phase such a system. So mathematically, in an hexagonal system, there is this critical concentrations is well known. So we just have calculated these critical concentrations based on the distance between the two interacting Mercury, and we have actually estimated such a topological transition to be near 9%. So only 9% of Mercury can possibly drive such a system to a topological phase. But again, this is a necessary condition, but not a sufficient one. But just to show that this is not too low to be true, we have done some order geometries, but our order geometries, we can go even lower than that. But I have shown here that only 4% of Mercury is enough to drive a topological phase. So we have here 4% forming this hexagonal phase, and the system without spin-orbit coupling, the system is metallic, but spin-orbit coupling open a gap here, and we have characterized the Z2 invariants to be 1. But for these lower concentrations, keeping the same concentration but changing the position of the Mercury, now I made this pair of Mercury too far from the other ones, so they are not interacting too much, but the system is trivial. So it depends on the geometry of the system. But even so, at lower concentration, maybe this topological phase can be stabilized. So this is just a summary of what I have done till now. So what I want to say here is that this transition methodological cogenite are largely explored experimentally, but there's not too many works, especially experimentally, looking to topological phase in such a system. But it seems that they are a divergent topology. So any kind of perturbation, being vacancies or a foreign atom, seems to drive those systems to a topological phase, but not always at the Fermi level. So maybe it needs an exploration to interface this system with other materials to see if we can actually manipulate the Fermi level to synchronize with a topological gap. And well, this is, I actually was very, very fast in my talk, but I would like to thank you, the LNCC for computational time, FAPESP that did the money for all these works, and I have some collaborations here that work in those papers. So I want to thank you all, and that's it. Questions now.
Thank you, Felipe. Thank you very much. Very, very didactic talk, and we are open to questions. Questions, anyone? Gerson, please.
Hi, Felipe. Thanks for the very nice talk. I have many questions because I'm working on similar projects, both with Augusto and with Brian. So we can talk later about a bunch of details, but I want to ask a generic question. So first, I like very much the estimation you made for the 9% of mercury based on this range of the interaction. This is a quite a nice way to estimate the ideal range. I didn't think about that. Could be useful. And so now for the simulations, for the random, so in the beginning you were showing defects that are not really defects because it's periodic and well arranged. And in the end, you show this SQS to deliver the true randomness. But then you are still using not so big supercells, right?
Yeah.
So everything you're doing here is with DFT, VASP, or well, I guess VASP, right?
Yeah, yeah.
So why don't you go to tight binding using PowerFlow or some other code to allow you to go bigger?
Yeah, we could go there, but there's this tight binding models I have done for the Jacutinga system. It's very good when we have the mercury in opposite side of this platinum atom. I don't know if you can see my mouse. I'm guessing yes. So yes. When we have such a configuration, then you actually a single orbital at a mercury it's enough to describe the structure of those systems. But when we start to do a random configuration, we eventually end up with mercuries very close to each other, and this a single orbital is not enough to describe the base structure of those systems. I have tried these and
but you're talking about this simple tight binding model that you do by hand.
Yeah.
No, I'm talking about using a code like PowerFlow that allows you to do multi-orbital.
Yeah. Maybe it's possible. Maybe you can extract by PowerFlow, but then to do this in PowerFlow, we need to run. Yeah, we can learn actually the hoppings by PowerFlow and try to understand how we can do it randomly.
Yeah, then we can do much bigger.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
So Anderson has a question. Anderson, please.
Yeah. Hey, Philip, how are you?
Hi, Anderson.
I have. So in this case where you have a mercury, does it matter what is the host? Does it matter if it is a TMD or, let's say, suppose you have a glass where you have the mercury at such a concentration that you see this percolation? Would that show would that be topological as well?
Yeah, it doesn't need to be mercury, but it needs to be the topological bands, let's say, need to be pinpointed somewhat related to this Fermi atom. Because if this topological band, let's just show, if this topological band are coming from this Fermi atom, where's the projection? Oh, yeah. So it needs these two atoms to interact to drive the topological phase, then we can actually talk about the percolation. So it doesn't need to be mercury and doesn't need to be the transition method called cogenite backbone, but any system that the characteristic bands that are related to the topology are coming from such an atom. So maybe if you're thinking I don't know. Maybe we can actually think about trying to introduce some other. For instance, let's say if we have the hexagonal boron nitride system and replace boron with carbon, maybe the carbon orbital will be in the middle of the gap. And if you have carbon interact with each other, if you add spin orbit to the system, this will drive this topological phase. So you actually can do this percolation model to try to describe this limit, topological limit.
Okay.
Any more questions? Emmanuel, please.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Hi, Philip. Thank you for the talk.
Sorry, Manuel, I'm just gonna take my audio here higher because I cannot listen you. Just a minute.
Can you hear me better now?
Yeah.
Okay. Just a simple questions. In all concentrations of HT, the mercury, you have shown the edge states. In all cases, is perpendicular to the plane, the spin is XZ the dominant or some XY or something in other direction happens?
That is a very good question. So if you look, even for the order system here, this is, I'm looking upward to the material. Here we have a side view. So imagine this is the edge of the system. If you look to the spin here for the topological phase, is not along the z-axis, but it's kind of canted here in a different direction. We think that this is due to this buckling-like geometry of the mercury, but we know that this canted here is not exactly perpendicular to the system plane. But even so, this is for the order case. We have done this. For the disorder case, we have about checked.
Okay, thank you. Just another one. These nickel-based materials that you've shown, that's trivial. Some type of magnetism arises in these materials or not?
Yeah. So for the pristine system, I think all these materials are non-magnetic. But if you do a transition method vacancy, then they can stabilize a magnetic phase. Usually for monolayer, the total magnetic moment is 0. So you have antiferromagnetic coupling between neighboring selenites close to the vacancy, but there is a magnetic phase arising when there's a vacancy of transition metals.
Okay, thank you.
So, any more questions? So, if not, we should thank the speaker again. Felipe, thank you very much.
Thank you.
I will be sending you an email to ask for the slides so that we can post them together with the video, which will be posted soon.
Perfect. Thank you again for the invitation, everyone. If you have any questions, please can send me an email or a message, and I'm happy to answer.
Okay. Okay. Thank you very much, and we will be back next week.
Felipe, obrigado, cara. Depois eu queria conversar com você, né?
Valeu. Opa. Tá me escutando?
Oi?
Ah, tá, beleza. Não, depois a gente pode conversar aí.
Conversa com o Augusto, que tá do teu lado.
O Augusto tá bitolado, cara. Ele tá fazendo tanta coisa que ele...
Não, tá aí do seu lado, eu falei.
Ele tá do meu lado, mas ele tá bitolado também. Ele tá fazendo tanta coisa que ele não sabe pra onde que ele toca, assim.
Vamos conversar, porque a gente tá fazendo coisa bem parecida, mas eu queria fazer com o PowerFlow.
Isso é legal.
Justamente para pegar o fato de ser aleatório mesmo.
Eu comecei a brincar com o PowerFlow. O Iroque fez até algumas contas, começou a brincar, mas eu não saquei ainda assim, para eu tirar esses parâmetros e depois tentar aleatorizar. Mas eu acho que tem como sim, né? Porque você tem o Hamiltoniano, é só brincar com trocar os sítios, né?
Na palestra do Márcio, ele mostrou exatamente esse caso, em que você tem a simulação pristina, você tem uma simulação de baixa densidade, basicamente uma única impureza numa supercélula maior possível, e aí o código interpola para você ficar com uma... Você distribui aleatoriamente e ele interpola as duas para fazer um sistema misto. Parece que funciona muito bem, porque o Augusto tem uns resultados, não sei se você lembra, ele te mostra depois, e a gente escreveu uma primeira versão do paper, e o paper fala basicamente que, mostra os resultados, mas a gente interpreta os resultados como sendo um sistema com impurezas, defeitos aleatórios. Porque as nossas supercélulas são pequenas. Então, na análise teórica que a gente fez e tal, a gente fica muito na dúvida se o resultado é aleatório ou se é